If you spend any time teaching skiing, drills are everywhere. We use them to highlight movements, simplify problems, and guide learning. But in the skill acquisition world, there's an increasingly important distinction instructors need to understand: the difference between a drill and a task. At first glance, they may look similar. Both involve practice, both involve skiing, but from a learning perspective, they function very differently. And understanding that difference can completely change how we design our lessons. Let's start with drills. Traditionally, a drill is a prescribed movement pattern that the instructor asks the skier to repeat. The goal is usually to isolate a movement, exaggerate a sensation, or simplify part of the skill. Classic examples in skiing might be things like javelin turns, braquage, one-ski skiing, or edge rolls. In these situations, the instructor already knows what movement they want to see. The skier's job is to replicate that movement. And drills can be extremely useful for raising awareness, highlighting cause and effect, and directing attention to a specific element of technique. But drills focus primarily on movement execution. The movement solution is already decided. The instructor knows what the movement should look like, and the skier's job is to reproduce it. In other words, drills are usually movement-focused. A task is different. In skill acquisition literature, particularly ecological dynamics and the constraints-led approach, a task is usually defined as a goal or a problem for the learner to solve within a set of constraints. Instead of prescribing the movement, the instructor defines a goal, a set of rules or boundaries, and an environment. The skier then organizes their movements to achieve that outcome. For example, instead of saying, "do edge rolls," you might say, "see if you can leave the cleanest, thinnest possible tracks in the snow." Instead of prescribing the movement, you're setting an outcome problem. Now the skier is solving a problem, not reproducing a movement. And the movements that emerge are part of the solution. The skier now has to explore these movement solutions to achieve their goal. This difference matters because sport performance isn't just movement execution. Real skiing requires the learner to perceive information from the environment, make decisions, and organize movement in response to terrain changes, snow changes, and speed changes. So the skill we're trying to develop isn't simply, can they perform this movement? It's, can they solve skiing problems in changing conditions? The learner is perceiving information and organizing movements in response. Tasks preserve that perception-action relationship. Drills often simplify it or remove it. That's why you sometimes see a skier perform a drill beautifully, and then their skiing doesn't change. Not because the drill wasn't bad, but because the practice didn't fully connect back to the performance environment. Now, this doesn't mean drills are bad. In fact, drills can play a very valuable role. They can highlight sensations, exaggerate movements, simplify complex problems, and direct the skier's attention. Think of drills less as skill builders and more as awareness tools. They can help skiers notice something they weren't noticing before. But the key is that drills should almost always lead back into a task, because skill ultimately develops when the skier has to solve real skiing problems. For instructors, the key shift is in practice design. First, ski the task, let the skier experience the problem. Then, if needed, introduce a short drill to highlight something useful, and then quickly return to the task where the skier can apply what they noticed. So instead of structuring sessions like drill, 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 free ski, we can think more in terms of ski, drill, ski, task, ski. Drills become short interventions that highlight something important, but the majority of learning happens when the skier is solving meaningful skiing problems. Drills support the learning, but the task is where the skill actually develops. So the difference between drills and tasks isn't just semantics. Drills repeat movements. Tasks create problems to solve. Both have value, but when we're building learning environments around tasks first and use drills to support them, we tend to produce skiers who are more adaptable, more independent, and better able to transfer their skills to real conditions. And for us as instructors, that shift moves us away from prescribing movements and towards designing better learning environments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.